Book genre demand: gaining, staying versus declining. I really like this topic today, and it's something to look for in your business moving forward. Right? This is just my opinion. You could have a different opinion on this, and if you watch this video, please in the comment section tell me what genres of books you see are gaining traction, staying up in demand, or declining in demand, right, as we move forward in the world. I think it's a topic that needs to be talked about quite a bit, because you want to be ahead of the curve on both sides. You don't want to be investing in products that don't have the demand anymore, and you want to make sure you're investing in the products that you know you can get a sale from, and that more sales will come in the future because of popularity. Both levers you need to understand. And so I'm just going to go through what I believe is happening in the book world. Okay. So first, we'll do what's gaining and staying in demand, and I labeled some of them green because I think they're gaining, and I labeled them black as they're just staying. And so the first one, smaller booklets, ephemera. I believe that's gaining popularity and in demand. People don't want larger books anymore. As we become more of a intangible society, as we become less of a tangible society, less of a physical society. You can see that in publications as well, especially with the younger generations. They don't like to read as much, but they do like ephemera. They do like photos, and they do like specific booklets on specific topics and such. And so a lot of my sales have been small booklets, for real. And I've enjoyed that because it's easier to pack, it's easier to ship, easier to store. So I've definitely leaned into that. I'm still working on ephemera. I sell some ephemera sometimes, but that's very niche. So if you have a little bit longer tail, obviously it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. You just let it sit, and it will find its buyer eventually. One that's staying in demand: video gameplay, RPG books. That's always had a great demand, especially going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s. Video games are still very popular. So I think the demand is staying there. Now, do I believe it's growing? I don't know. Maybe it has, a normal growth rate. I believe it has a normal growth rate, but I believe it's not having an exponential growth rate like smaller books and ephemera. But definitely always be on the lookout for Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, Battleship, or any gaming manual guide, even video games, like actual disc video games, they do well. Staying, vintage sports, especially football. I've had a lot of success for selling football, sports media guides, magazines, college, NFL, books. I literally today, I just sold a $90 vintage lacrosse fundamentals manual book from the 60s, a big book. So I think the demand for vintage sports, especially football, is staying. Other sports does well, basketball, baseball. But just in American society, I think football is on the best terms of popularity and still growth. That's still out there. There's an argument that NBA, baseball are declining. But that's for another topic for another day. In general, you can't go wrong with vintage sports, booklets, magazines, guides. Metaphysical, occult, spirituality. I could say this one's gaining popularity, but I think this one has always been robust. And I think the demand is staying put. Obviously, as we become more of a conscious society, we become less physical. There is demand there, and it's going to stay. But is it growing? I'm not too sure. And maybe I'm biased because this is my space. I love metaphysical. I love occult. I love spirituality. But I'm very picky on what I put in my collection. There's a lot of books out there on this topic that I just don't think serve its purpose, or it's a good reference for this type of topic. So maybe I'm a little biased, but I know for a fact this demand is going nowhere. And I think it's on the fence. I think it could be growing still. I think it could be gaining still. Another one I do believe it's gaining a lot is alternative health, activity, life sport. Karate, taekwondo, vintage bodybuilding, those vintage health books, vintage cookbooks, these are all doing really well. People are becoming more conscious about their health. They want to live longer, and they want to collect these type of things. And obviously there's nothing new under the sun. So a lot of things that you're doing health-wise now, you could be found in older publications, which might have less filtering in it. So it's another space I'm really interested in. When I look at books, I'm always looking for alternative health, activity, and life sport books. It's in vogue for sure. Another one, art books, art catalogs. I think the demand is staying there. It's a higher price point product. It's a more affluent product. In my experience, it's a longer tail product unless you have something super, super amazing. For the longest time, I had so many art books in my store, in my eBay store. They weren't selling. I just loaded up on art books. They weren't selling. But after a while, after I guess the algorithm or people who love this niche found me, they started buying the art catalogs and art books like crazy. So it's been a slow burner for me. That's what I'm mostly focusing on my Etsy store as well. And I haven't sold an art catalog or art book yet, but I think once it finds its pocket, it's going to do really well. And the value is staying there. And, the margins are great. So I really like the art books, art catalog niche. Antique nonfiction, which is crazy. You would say, well, the demand's always been there for antique nonfiction. I don't know. I think with the information age, a lot of people are searching for a lot more information from the past that wasn't really out there before. And so what's unique about the antique nonfiction is a lot of those books may have not been popular back in the day, like when they came out, like with their counterparts with antique fiction. Antique fiction, that's always done well historically. But I think antique nonfiction with the information age, people looking for more information and trying to backdate where the origination of things can't come from. I think that's really going to kickstart that moving forward. And it's been one of my best sellers on my eBay store. One of my more fascinating topics I like to source on as well. And the last one, and along with the metaphysical, occult, spirituality, is finance and self-help. There could be an argument that, these niches, these genres are gaining demand, right? And historically, I don't believe, I might have to say this is gaining. I think that finance has to be in green because, there's always books out there that sell within the finance world, like, Think, Grow Rich. I have the first edition, third printing of that, that could sell for $1,000 online. But, just like the metaphysical, occult, and spirituality space, there's a lot of books out there that it's a dime a dozen, right? But there's books out there that are worth a lot of money and are highly valuable. And I collect them. I collect both these: metaphysical, occult, spirituality, finance, help. And these are the two categories where, I allow myself to be a collector. Everything else here I'll sell easy, but I allow myself to be a collector for metaphysical, occult, spirituality, financial help, because it's helped my life so much. So they're on the fence on if it's gaining or staying, but you can't go wrong with it. Now let's go into the declining. And there could be some argument here. I hope somebody has a different point of view with this. And if you do have a different point of view with this, please let me know in the chat, the comment section, to see where you feel. But this is just my opinion. These are the declining demands, book demands for the genres, right? General militaria. So that includes military manuals, anything like war related and such. And, this is kind of like a hot debate, hot topic sometimes. It's not that I'm saying you can't sell great general militaria stuff. What I'm saying is the demand is declining, and I think there is significant reasons why. In the 20th century, we had two world wars. We had the Vietnam War. We had so many other wars, from 1900 to 1999. There were a lot of major wars, a lot of technology that came out of wars too. So it was a very different time in history where a lot was going on, and it's what made it very popular. Movies glorified, war, military, and while there's still there's still a great respect for people who served. My father served. I have other family members that have served. I believe it's important to give respects where the respects due, but I just don't see the younger populations collecting this type of stuff. And that's why I had my whatnot sale of military manuals. I was holding those as an investment. I was saying, maybe 5-10 years down the line, those would be worth more. I just don't. After thinking about it, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Not the general stuff. I just don't think kids care. And I know people in the military now, and they will tell you, like younger kids now, they'll say, the people in the military now, they don't have the same nostalgia or enthusiasm as there once was to serve. It's kind of a gruesome story, but back in the day, like World War I and World War II, there were young boys who didn't get drafted that, they committed suicide, like, because that was the goal. Like that was the pinnacle. If you were in the military, you would get a girl, like you have a wife, you got benefits, you come back home, you're a hero, right? So that was the end all be all for a lot of people back in the day of society. People, I wouldn't want to be drafted today, right? But some people wanted to get drafted because that was their chance to be something special in the eyes of society. And it's just not there anymore. And I don't see that coming back. And so I think the demand is dropping for it. That's just me. Same thing in general war history. I think the collecting base for that type of stuff is passing away. Now, if you told me you had an antique pamphlet from Hannibal's military manual from when he was the general of Carthage facing Rome, if you had like a booklet from back then, that's a different story. I would have that in my collection today. If I had a manual from Napoleon with his war strategies, his battle strategies, that's a different type of thing. That demand is always going to be there. That's a different type of special thing. But to think you're just going to pick up a general war history book or a general military manual and you think you can get that off for a good price, I just don't see it. I just don't see the demand for it. Another one, JFK memorabilia. I think we're just so far removed from that event now. The younger population, they don't really see that as an event they care about. A lot of people who collected that stuff are starting to pass away, and a lot of that stuff is finally coming on the market now, so it's lessening in value. To say I wouldn't collect something from JFK, I would if I do deem it valuable. I just don't think a newspaper from that day holds the same cachet as it once did. Just my opinion. General paperbacks, sci-fi. I'm trying to sell all those. This is really just the general paperbacks, the general sci-fi. I just don't see value in it as a reseller. Some people do buy those. Like there is a demand for it, but it's declining, and it's not a lot of money in it. So I just try to, I'm trying to stay away from those now. I just don't see a whole lot of value. Antique general fiction, a general fiction book from the late 1800s, that doesn't really hold a whole lot of value. Just, there's a lot of demand just because it's old now, but there's a lot of old stuff out there, and content is very important. And so if you're not like Catcher in the Rye or the Grapes of Wrath, or like a first edition Mark Twain, or like one of those type of high-end type of fiction books, I just don't see there a lot of value in just picking up and general antique fiction. You're not going to be able to get those off like you feel like you're going to get those off. People aren't that interested. Just because something's old doesn't mean it's valuable. It's got to have some type of cachet into it. And so that's why I like antique nonfiction, because the content has more cachet. For general antique fiction, the cachet comes from, how the society, how famous was that book was, and such. So in general vintage cookbooks, I'm not picking up I'm not picking up an old cookbook just because it's an old cookbook. I think that you can make money. Like, you can make money in all these actually, but is it worth it in my business moving forward to invest a lot of capital in these? Personally, no. Right. And as you see, this is all general, right? There are exceptions to the rule, of course. And so, that's where I'm at with the gaining, staying demand, declining demand. And I do have some gematria here. Book values equals 33 in reduction. So, that's a good base bone gematria decode right there. And I have general militaria. This is a tongue twister. General militaria's demand is slowing down as baby boomer generation starts to die off. 333 reductions. So let me say that one more time. General militaria's demand is slowing down as baby boomers generation starts to die off. 333 English reductions. So that's a very strong decode in my opinion. I believe I am seeing that as a shift that's happening. The baby boomers are slowly dying off. Their collections are coming online. And that's a lot of stuff in there. It's not as rare as it once was. It's not as beholden as it once was, especially when the younger generations aren't picking up that slack. They don't really care about those books as much. It just is what it is. And this is probably the most powerful decode I had for this topic today. Book values die with generation era. And so the baby boomer era is coming to an end. And so the book values from that generation are going to die off as well. Obviously, there's always exceptions to the rules. As for Disney, I would say I should have brought up for like Disney. Disney's a good example where the demand is staying. You could probably say it's even gaining. Disney has spanned generations. We're talking about 4 generations of families at this point that Disney has touched people emotionally. So that's an exception to the rule, to where, the original Disney generation, they may be dying off, but Disney as a company has done a good job of keeping everyone entrained in the magic. And so once again, book values die with generation era, 333 English ordinal. And so that's what I have on book genre demand. Please, in the comment section, let me know if you agree, you disagree. If you have any other things to add on, make sure to subscribe to my channel and all my other channels as well in the link in the description.